Are we ready? All right. I can't see that far down. All right, I'd like to call the November 5th meeting of the Properties Committee to order. And I believe we have a quorum. I think Nancy is the only one we're missing. And is that it? Yes, I believe we have everybody. Sherry has graciously said that she would take the minutes for this meeting, so we thank you, Sherry. And we move on to the approval of the minutes for the October 1st meeting. Do we have any corrections or additions? Otherwise, we'll accept the minutes as written. Okay. And then I understand we are going to have a presentation on the solar electric station. No? Sharon?
I thought you guys were going to bring it up today at the properties meeting. You're not bringing it up at the properties meeting?
So this showed up as an item?
Right.
I thought Bill put it on there, he didn't put it on there, we didn't even know how it got on there.
It was on there to move the project forward so that I can talk to them or not. So that I understood it had to come to the properties committee first. So it was my understanding that you were going to talk about the fact that as to where you wanted to locate it, so that I could move the project along, yes or no. If I'm wrong, that's what I was told.
So when we met with that gentleman, I told him I would get a site plan drawn up where I thought it should be if we chose to even do it. We haven't even chosen to do it yet.
Well, that's what I'm here for, to see if we can move it along, to see about doing it. So how do I do that then with you? I don't know what comes first.
Chicken or the egg?
Or talk about it.
I don't want you to be the chicken either. I'm just asking what comes first. What do you want me to do? I have a transit project that after we had I'll give just a brief, if that's okay, Roberta. There was an opportunity from the governor's office to do a pilot program in the Sun Cities area. And this program would be completely paid for by the state of Arizona or outside funding. It has cost the residents here absolutely nothing. It would be a 6-month pilot program. It involves green energy, it involves solar and electrics, it involves driverless shuttles, it involves a whole bunch of different pieces that go with it. And so in order to move it forward and get the outside funding, I need to have permission to work on the project. So I don't know how to do that, except the engineers came out to talk with you guys about where the electric station could be put, and that's what I'm trying to do. So
what you guys have in front of you is a site plan of Ari Johnson. Because what they initially proposed was a solar panel shade parking area up by the social hall, which we've already determined by the time you put sunshades that close to the building and the level drop at Johnson, you can no longer see the building, all you see is parking structure, which is why we haven't already covered this in solar parking now. So Carl and I looked over this entire thing to find out where we could put one that wouldn't be in the way of everyday parking, which is right down in that neutral zone by the library. There's a lot of unknowns. A lot of questions still need to be answered. Our stance is we'd like to see it somewhere else, like in a church parking lot. But if it had to be here, if we really wanted to stand behind this, this is where we would recommend it be. That's where we're at in this whole thing.
Ms. Davidson, if I may, a little more background on this situation. This is kind of an omelet that's not anywhere near form. I'm not sure how it got on the agenda at this point. We were meeting with the consultants a couple of times. They came out and they looked at the covered parking shelter that was in the fire station out on Deer Valley Road. They were working with the fire administration there to see if that was a possible structure for them to use as far as putting some solar panels on top of that awning. Apparently that didn't work out with the fire district. They came back and spoke with us, looking at our ocean of parking here to determine whether or not a feasible awning could fit somewhere here. Russ explained where we are kind of at this point in time. We've been looking at areas to the back of our facility. We've been looking at places over by the auto restoration facility. We've looked at areas by the library. Certain things come into play, i.e. where your infrastructure is and how, via the engineering of this thing, plays into cost analysis as far as them raising money to make this feasible for them to do that. A lot of pieces are still spread out all over the table and nowhere close to being put together. So it's a little premature at this point. There has been a request made, like Sharon has said, regarding this pilot program. But from an infrastructure perspective and where this potential structure could potentially be has not been determined. And we are in that particular process as we speak. And so for them to assess location and cost, they're still playing that game. So we really don't have anything formatively to show you or really to report on, other than, the overall program of what they're trying to do. And that is and I think Sharon, if you want to elaborate on that, I think that's okay at this point in time. But as far as any costs, our actual participation levels, that is still a ways from home.
Okay, and to that, is this on then?
I believe so.
Okay, to that point, I'll take this off, sorry. If there's any cost to the rec centers, the project wouldn't be done. So this was part of the negotiation with the governor's office in regards to this particular project, was to see if we couldn't put something into the Sun Cities area. Sun City West was picked first to be a pilot program, and all of the funding would need to be in place or nothing gets done. In regards to the electric and solar part, we just were trying to establish with the Properties Committee that we wanted to look at this, have people sit down and talk with Bill and Russ about this and let you know what was going on. If you say, absolutely not, we're not interested in any electric or solar panels or anything else, then the project goes away tomorrow and they go somewhere else with the money included. So I'm simply asking whether or not it's okay to go forward, because we can't go out and start looking at outside funding besides the governor's office without an okay that, yes, this is something we want to look at. Otherwise, I don't have any way to do that.
So, Bill, would we just go through the governing board directly on this? Or does it have to come out of properties?
I would recommend properties.
Okay, so,
Would you like Chris to come and make a presentation to you? Would it be
yeah,
better
why
that way?
don't we
No?
make a presentation at the December meeting?
If that falls into their schedule, I think Russ has provided them some potential options as far as location goes, and for them to assess whether or not the solar feature would work. They've also talked about, hooking up directly to our existing electrical base that we have here at some of our facilities based on a cost opportunity. So those things are still in play. But I think if if the consultant wants to come out and do a formal presentation at that point in time in December, I think that would be viable.
All right, then we will put this on the agenda for the December meeting,
Okay, that's fine. I'll tell him.
yeah. And then if we have a recommendation, then it would go to the governing board.
Okay, thank you.
What would the solar be used for? You're generating some electricity, what are you going to use it for?
I'm sorry.
You're generating some electricity with the solar, what are you going to use it for? Anything?
The proposal that was originally given to, or discussed with Bill and Russ, was that we had two options. If the rec centers want to be getting all of the advantages, both tax-wise and the electricity from the extra electricity that's there, then part of that has to come with with the costs here to the rec centers. If they don't choose to do that piece, then whoever it is that is funding this, including the state of Arizona, would probably be either ASU, who's doing part of the electrical piece that we're speaking with right now, or the state of Arizona would get the extra electric use. And because we don't pay for anything here. The structure, no matter, after the pilot program is done, is left here for the rec centers. Nothing that we're doing is going to be removed after the project was over. So I saw this as a win-win for the community because A, we didn't have to pay for any of the solar or any installation of anything if we had space for it to do it, and actually wanted to look at this piece going forward, because the transit study that came back from 3 months ago showed 50% of the residents in the Sun City area, Sun City West area, were interested in having mobility of transit. So if 50% of our residents are looking at this, I would think that this is something that we'd want to look at. So that's my goal. Now, if the rec centers wants to take it on as paying for it, then they get all the tax information, that you get everything that goes with it. If not, then it goes the other way.
So the purpose of this, John, would be to power and charge 24 autonomous vehicles that would be brought in for this pilot program. So it's not shaded parking for anybody to use. It would be primarily for these cars. That would be their station where they would be recharged when the time was there. And people could pull up and actually take these cars and use them to go here, there, and everywhere, and then have to bring them back to charge them again.
And in addition to that, the cars themselves are used by Northwest Valley Connect to take our residents to places. So they're fully, they are handicap accessible for everything except a full-size wheelchair. We would pick residents up in these. Some of them might even be located at people's homes that are drivers. About a third of our 1,500 clients that are in the base right now that get rides come from the Sun City West area. The other third is from Sun City, and the rest are from El Mirage and Surprise area. So we're using this right now as a pilot to say, is this something that would be available for our residents to use, where they could come and get a car, just like you'd rent a Segway or a bicycle, put a credit card in, drive it, or is this something that we'll actually use to pick residents up in, and it gives them an opportunity to see what the green cars are all electric, so what the electric car is like, what its ability is. And when we're done, as I said, the 27 parking spaces solar are staying there, so nothing is going to go away. Then it belongs to the rec centers.
Thank you.
Sure,
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Sharon.
sure.
All right, we're moving on to our policy reviews. This month, we're doing FA5, 6, 7, and 8. I don't think we have any big issues. Under FAO5 is the smoke-free environment. And pretty much is a straightforward. The only thing I noticed, because Prop 207 did pass, that whether the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act would be blended in with 207, so that might just need to be updated at some future time, because these things usually take, after an initiative passes, a couple years for the legislature and everybody else to get on board. So unless somebody has any additions or changes, we'll accept FAO5 as is. FAO6 is allocation of space in association facilities. I know it was revised earlier this year, and so I don't really think we have anything to add to it, unless somebody does. Then we'll accept it as it is. FAO7 is association-approved non-event advertising. Does anybody have any comments, questions, or additions? Otherwise, we'll accept this one as written.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the commercial advertising, what about some of the places that we have either ballparks or pickleball courts that are named? Is that considered advertising?
Bill, with this is under your purview, right? The advertising at the ballpark and so forth, your approvals? Yes, ma'am. Yes. So,
am I not mistaken, I kind of heard that Mimo's, was it on one of the dog parks or something like that? What, he put in some money for it, and they wanted their name to be on there or something like that?
Tennis.
Oh, tennis? Okay, so in other words, is that, would that fall under this too?
Memos went into contract with the rec centers prior to any changes from last year's policy on naming rights, and that's where the discussion stemmed from, and changes were made. So memos is under a current agreement, and when that agreement is over, it would be re-reviewed.
Okay, thank you.
And Roberta, if I may, I believe there's the separate policy that you're aware of and have on the agenda regarding naming rights.
Yeah, FAO2 and 12, yes. And the last one is guest, excuse me, guest credit policy. It was last revived last June, a year ago, and I think it's pretty update. I think everybody's been aware of it. Unless somebody has any additions or changes, we'll accept it as is. Okay. So we'll just recommend to the governing board that we accept those policies as is. Now regarding FAO2 and FA12. Okay, this has evolved from the initial Don Baker Memorial at the Palm Ridge Pool regarding the digital clock that was donated by the master swimmers into a discussion on naming rights as well as how plaques and memorials are approved. Tomorrow, the Naming Rights Committee, which was spelled out in FA12, which consists of 2 board members, the CFO, and the manager of the affected departments, along with the general manager. So we're going to be reviewing donor recognition document that the general manager supplied. And so I'm just the facilitator on the meeting. I'm not a voting member because eventually this will come to the Properties Committee. So at this time, when it comes to the Properties Committee, we don't know if it's going to be just amending FAO2 or 12, or whether it's going to be a new policy. That will be determined by this Naming Rights Committee that's meeting it after the board meeting tomorrow. So I'm going to table this issue until the next meeting when we have more information. Any objection?
Roberta, if I may, just to make a side comment. I do recall when the policy was originally brought to the board, there was a lot of comment and attempts to redraft it at the board, which caused even greater effort. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the group wants to suggest wording that has been worked through in advance.
So our next up on the agenda is an update from Carl and Russ.
Thank you, Roberta. Ari Johnson Large Dog Park renovation. Curbing, irrigation, and sod installation was completed October 26th. The other areas on my report here, cart parking, iron fencing, gates, final project details and progress. are primarily completed. We are just waiting on some iron fencing to come back from the powder coater, and the project is tentatively going to open on November 30th. Environmental Services has taken over operations of all the sod and irrigation, so Todd is maintaining the lawn, and it looks beautiful. The Ari Johnson Library countertops, the replacement project was completed October 5th. Moving over to Kuntz Master Projects, all areas of the projects are completed. I had to turn in, or the general contractor had to turn in grading and drainage as-built as the first step for county review before certificate of occupancy. I got report back of the review comments. We will have to do some alterations to our grading and drainage that is completed over there, and that will delay the certificate of occupancy. I have requested the general contractor to contact county and ask for a temporary certificate of occupancy so that it doesn't necessarily affect the club room's use. There is no guarantee that I'll get that, but I have put the request in, so. Palo Verde patchers and weavers equipment, furniture, and clubs' personal items are all set up in the clubs for the reopening. So there's nothing that needs to be done that would not allow the clubs to move right into their quarters and go to have fun. Also, the Kuntz parking lot and walking track project for Seal and Stripe was completed October 25th. And that is the end of my report.
Okay, over at Kuntz, we replaced 9 HVAC units of the woodworking club, built and installed new monitor station for the art room, for the art club. Facilities maintenance crews moved and installed all weavers and Palo Verde patchers furniture, equipment, and into the new club quarters. Removed and replaced the existing old ceiling grid and tiles from the original rooms to match the new rooms with the new tile and new grid. Repainted the swim and fitness lobby, locker and shower rooms. Built and provided all specialty designed yarn and loom storage cabinets and cutting tables. Over at Beardsley, we painted the interior of some rooms for Dave and his guys. We replaced the bench bases in the ADA assisted locker room. That was per the property's walkthrough. That was done by the end of that week. Over at Johnson, we replaced a unit on the social hall, J19. We're also painting hand railings throughout RH Johnson. We got Meeker Mountain done, and we are currently doing the railings at mini golf. We're also repainting all the legs to all the benches throughout RH Johnson as they started to peel. We installed 277 and 120 volt electrical service and wiring from the tennis tower to the large dog park. And we painted the interior of the pro shop over at Grandview prior to reopening over there. That's the end of my report.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions for Carl or Russ? Okay.
Do we have an opening date on Kuntz?
I just mentioned that we can't open until I have certificate of occupancy for the 2 craft rooms, technically the renovated courtyard and the fitness room. Otherwise, there's nothing other than COVID-related issues and staffing to supply the staff to do, open the pool and everything else, so.
Carl, how significant are the draining issues?
Basically, the review comments for those areas are, they want refinements to the riprap, like they need it deeper. They want more involvement with the grading and drainage surveys team to actually put depths to their plans that they turn in, a very higher level of detail than kind of ever been held to. So I don't know if county has more time on their hands these days, or I'm trying to be respectful, and there's nothing to do except for answer their review comments, so
I understand, I just wondered how.
I was pretty disappointed with the comments, so, but
Having dealt with certain governmental entities, sometimes that occurs, so I certainly understand. I just wondered how significant the changes might be.
I think they're an inconvenience. The problem is it creates another 2-week review time.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Moving on to our tour report. Before we do that, I did want to remind the committee that we have a December 1 deadline to get our recommendations for any capital projects for the next year's, next fiscal year. So they handed me the budget timeline today, or emailed it to me. So are we going to be having any club make requests? Does anybody know? I thought pickleball.
It is very possible, based on, so staff has a, pickleball came to staff with an expansion idea to help them make sure that they have the right information to present to you or other committees. We've assisted them in some pre-planning to make sure that their idea isn't some pipe dream. So staff is going to review the preliminary plans that we've asked of one of our designers. Once staff's comments are next week, then the following week, which I believe is the week of the 20th, the pickleball club will be meeting with staff to review those comments. And then they can determine whether they get on your agenda or not. So I believe they're coming, but I'm not sure. I also know that it's the garden club's intention to, between the garden club and Riley, who's in charge of charter clubs, I believe they will ask for an agenda line item for your December meeting. And I believe that's it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Before we start our discussion on our tours, I'd really like to thank Carl and Russ for taking us around to all the facilities and providing useful information to us, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that.
We thank you. You guys did a great job.
So reviewing our, you should have, I emailed everybody a copy, and I believe Karen did, of our tour, and then Carl and Russ looked it over, and some of the maintenance items have been already submitted. So we don't have that many that would be considered a capital project. On the tile replacement at the pool, would that be something that we would have evaluated first before we submit any kind of budget item would be put?
So I'd like to mention, based on the report that you have here today, that if you see the bullet items, Russ went through this, reviewed it with me, and he determined kind of how it will help you understand what we plan on doing. So you had items that were achievable just by creating an MPS, and facilities maintenance has already addressed some of them items. So the bullet points are items that I would put in the capital budget if you recommend them to be put in the capital budget, okay? So if you want to go line by line, then we can discuss these things and, okay?
So we move down, so the,
So to replace the tile in the indoor pool, I will simply put a capital line item. It's 4 foot of wainscoting throughout the whole interior of the Palm Ridge pool, and I will figure out a cost and put that in as a budget line item for governing board approval.
okay, thank you. The next one we have is the pool entrance is already being taken care of, like the that was originally in the budget, right?
That is
Sure,
correct. So the Beardsley Aquatics building entry is another line item that I'll put into the capital budget. It was brought up again from last year. And in fact, I met with architecture today to discuss that, so.
Okay, what about the spa wall improvements?
I would like a conversation about that, and if you, for whomever brought that up, if you could expand on spa wall improvements, please.
Sherry, wasn't that yours?
That was mine. So the tile in
Put your mic on.
Sorry. The tile in that spa area of Beardsley is original tile. What's that?
The terrazzo wall panels,
Yeah,
about 4 foot tall as well.
yeah. So we were just thinking, of bringing it up to code, but I'm sure it's functional.
It's
Or
very
bringing-
functional, but it's less than appealing. So, did you have any ideas of what you'd like to see? Because the way it stands right now, the stuff is bulletproof, but it's aged, it's discolored. We have soda blasted it through the years to try to get it back to white again. And then you guys came through and kind of did what you were supposed to do and give your opinion of what you saw, and you weren't impressed. So where do we go from here?
So I would just replace it with other tile that's,
Problem is, it's not tile.
Oh.
So that is terrazzo starts as almost like a cement. They trowel it on, it's thick, so so our best bet is just to cover it, because trying to tear it off, it would
Okay.
be a mess and a half, yeah,
see, I didn't know all that
yeah.
when I said I didn't like the looks.
So the only, starting conversation that I can come up with is, do you want to recommend a tile? And consider, it's not just the spa, that terrazzo's throughout that whole entire large interior aquatics building. And you also could compare that to the Palm Ridge, so tile will take abuse, it'll have a grout joint. So my recommendation to you is maybe as a club, as a committee, just think about it for 30 more days and
Okay.
maybe come back with a couple ideas. I'll also think about it a little bit.
Okay. That sounds,
Can we use the wall covering that you've used at Kuntz in the spa room? Because that really is very nice. Oh, box.
Yeah. The Kuhn Spa definitely allowed it because of the size of that spa room, but your terrazzo, again, starts and ends, not just at the spa, but it's also in the interior pool, so that aquatics building is huge. So where do you draw the line? Are you just asking for an improvement of the spa area at Beardsley, or,
Carl, can they skim coat over terrazzo?
well, I haven't had enough time, because the report just came out, to determine that, but I could look into something.
Because I think you can. And I think you can colorize it when you skim coat. But you have to take into consideration the condensation, the humidity in there, because over time it could, the skim coat could peel off. But I think you can skim coat over the top of it.
Well, if all you're changing is the color, you could paint it. It's very paintable,
It is paintable?
sure. It's a cementatious product. It just has stone, it has colored stone mixed in it, and
we're
then it's
not-
ground smooth.
We wouldn't be talking about paint like you use for your house either.
No,
It might be
no.
like in a heavy acrylic-based
Yeah.
paint or something like that, I don't know.
So a paint would hold up fairly well in the spa area, in the pool area?
Yeah, epoxy.
Yeah, epoxy.
so it sounds like we need to talk about this for another 30 minutes and
As a committee, yeah.
as a committee and bring it back.
And what would the cost be like to paint if we were to do the whole area? Do you have any rough estimate on that?
No, I've only had this report for a couple of days, so
Okay.
not a miracle worker, Bob.
Oh, no, I realize that, but that would probably be the cheapest wouldn't it?
Yes, yes.
As far as alternative, and would look pretty nice. And
It would be cheaper than tile, for sure.
oh, yeah, we got a color issue.
So I'm also asking you to just say, clarify, is it just the spa? Because I know that in the report, it's not clear, but we talked about the pool area improvements, especially down at the end of the carpet area. So,
So, here's what we're up against. We have a gorgeous Ari Johnson pool. We have a beautiful Palm Ridge pool. Now Kuntz is gorgeous. And we have this ugly end of Beardsley. So I think this is like just the next pool that needs to be,
just remember, your recommendation is what gets it on record. So
Right.
it's not a recommendation that I'm bringing up or Russ is bringing up.
right.
Okay, so
So I would recommend we take some time to really study what we need to do at Beardsley and see how we can bring this up to our new standard of include the lighting, include the end that we want to do, include this wall. I mean, this wall in the spa is just a small piece of it.
And
That's my
the
opinion.
lighting is like number one priority
Right.
in there.
Well, okay, so the next line item is
Yeah.
improve pool lighting. So I have inquired with a couple experts, and we're making appointments now. So I hope to have some information for your final report, okay, before December. And it's not exactly in your report, but again, we discussed it as a whole. I have placed a line item in the budget because the end of pool carpet is in alignment with repair and replacement. So, this kind of as a package deal, redoing the flooring at the end of that pool with some form of flooring. And again, pool area improvements.
Well, and we're also doing the front of the pool with the entrance that we're talking about doing. So we're doing a lot of work at Beardsley.
As a recommendation,
Yeah.
The governing board has, a final
final
approval,
say.
and it could be
Right.
picked apart, so you still have
Right.
to approach everything as one piece,
Okay.
One thing I wanted to know about that seating area in the back, is there any way to remove the fountains? They seem like such a waste.
So we actually put those in there. That used to be all flat, except for the plants were always there. So you had the plants, the swirlies with the granite, and then the guy running the show at the time wanted fountains at the ends of those loops, and that's why you see what you see. Also, the one that's in the corner that goes all the way up to the ceiling, that used to be a waterfall down the wall. It leaked, and once it was done, you had to tear it apart to fix the leak, so we just shut it off, and now it's just a fountain in the bottom. So as easily as they went in, they could come out.
So we might want to include removal of those of any project that has to do with that
It
area.
wouldn't hurt my feelings at all.
All right, thank you.
And I do have an appointment with the vendor for the rubber flooring conversation, if that's, since you put that in your notes here.
And that would be like rubber flooring we have around Kuntz?
That would be correct.
That's over here, Marley.
Next thing on your report says outside area near agave, find area storage for tables and chairs kept outside, similar to storage area recently constructed at Kuntz. This may be part of a larger plan to replace the greenhouse and update the area adjacent to the courtyard. Discussion?
Well, I know Dave had brought up about changing that area in front of where the greenhouse is, and when you come out into that courtyard area on the other side, to make it a little bit more user-friendly. And then when I saw the chairs there, I said, well, would you like a storage area like we put in for, at Kuntz, and he jumped at that. So, and that would be nice to hide all those chairs and things that were there. But like I said, this whole thing might be for a big project when they do the replacement of the greenhouse.
So your recommendation is more of a suggestion
Right.
instead of actually putting a capital line item in?
Right,
Okay, so take it in consideration as we go down the road and if there's any areas, because I'll just straight up say that the only way this gets solved is through an addition.
Right.
And there are no plans for additions. There might be a conversation about a greenhouse, but that's not an addition.
right.
So,
Because on that area in front where the building, the agave room, on the other side of it, you could put a storage area.
an addition,
An addition, yes.
so.
Okay.
Are you suggesting an addition, or are you just say, think about this for future planning?
Yeah, for future plans, if we were going to redo that whole area, we could add that in. It doesn't necessarily have to go there, but since that's where you put all the, the chairs are in storage, it would be nice, sitting out there in the courtyard, it would be nice to remove them, so not such an eyesore.
The next thing on the list is Beardsley Park. It says investigate play area ground cover placement. And Pete and I have already assigned a PO to a vendor to do an overlay for the tour and play of the children's playground, so that is in progress. Next item is expand dance floor at Performance Pavilion. So I'm asking for your recommendation. What are you,
Well, one of the problems we run into, it just gets too crowded. And it looks like if you're facing it on the left side, that there's room to add on to the current patio there.
committee? I mean, you have to make decisions here.
I
so-
know.
So have conversation here. If you're gonna ask for a certain size, yeah, you wanna talk, come back?
Yeah, we'll
on
come
this?
back to this,
Okay.
because we have to, I was thinking on both sides, but somebody pointed out we couldn't do it on the right side for a particular reason, but. So, we'll come back to this one. Okay, Kuntz?
Tour of Kuntz, center courtyard, remove Palo Verde trees and replace with smaller plants, replace with shade sail canopies, similar to Arc courtyard area.
I thought at one time you couldn't remove that fountain. There was some issue.
That's your next line item. so-
Yeah, that's part of the whole thing.
Boomers originally had, that fountain was pulled out and turned into a flower pot. And then Kenny Jordahl with Boomers requested it be put back. And now you guys want it out.
Roberta, I guess what I'm trying to get a point here is that you're going to give your report to the governing board at a workshop. So these line items that you've brought up here in this report here, you as the lead for the committee here are going to say, the committee wants to have the Palo Verde trees removed. So is this where you're going to move forward? Are you going to, is that going to be your final report item, or?
Does anybody have any disagreement with that?
I think it's really important to have those Palo Verde trees out of there. I think they incur a lot of maintenance and work for the guys.
And they-
We,
And they're a mess.
yeah, I'm there in that courtyard a lot, and I don't think I've ever been there where they're not, from the trees covering the furniture and stuff like that. Seems like a lot of maintenance for what we're getting out of it. So I think we need to remove that, but we also need to, and when we're looking at the cost item of that, we have to look at is, do we want to put something back in there? Because I know if you do, then you're going to have to remove the whole root system, which I'd be more in favor of maybe either covering it over and going with the the shade sails.
I project shade sail canopies.
Yeah, because, well, if you take the trees out, I think we need some sort of shade in there. And I think the sails would be, so I think they're kind of go hand in hand that, but I think the trees are, create a lot of maintenance work and also probably do a lot to the furniture and stuff like that. It's always on the furniture every time I've been there, so. And it's certainly not because people's not out there, you don't have people out there taking care of it. It's just that, you can only be out there so much during the day. And so, to me, I think it's a good idea to get there and have them removed.
So let me expand on shade sails. So like if you were at the large dog park or the small dog park and you'll see there's a 4-post shade canopy, it's a 4-column shade canopy with a ridge structure, and those are average 10 feet by 20 feet in size, and they average about $8,000 a piece. So what you're discussing is more like what the ARC has in the front of their building, where it has to be an actually engineered column to hold the tension of a shade sail and have engineering. So your expense is going to be much greater. So again, if this is your final recommendation to the governing board, that's what needs to be in your final report. Okay?
All right. Well, I think we should investigate it. I've just seen them, but it's not so, they just,
That's fine. So
Put
that's
them
what I
out.
want to gain from this meeting today is
Right.
what am I putting energy towards and what am I not?
right, because we
Okay?
do need shade out there, but putting in another tree in substitute for the Palo Verde, I don't think is the answer. And while there's things that we could do that would put shade out there that would be better than those trees, because they are messy, especially when they have all the flowers and they get all over your clothes and the chairs. Maintenance might have been in there during the day, but as soon as the wind blows at night, all the chairs are covered with that stuff.
And remember also that shade sails need to be replaced approximately every 7, 8 years. So you have a reoccurring cost every time you do a shade sail somewhere.
Is it possible, Carl, it makes it difficult because visually we look at the trees and we go, yep, they got to go. But we, as a committee, have no idea of the gradient cost of shade sails. The 4-post one is one cost, the tension one, the attached to the, actually physically attached and designed to go into the sides of the building and crisscross, and there's lots of ways to anchor it. Is there a way that you could at least get this committee kind of a rough idea on those 3 different things so we could make an educated recommendation?
Yep.
Okay, I think that we're kind of all on the same page, that we think that a shade sail or something like that is the thing to do, get the trees out of there, and kind of give us an idea of what it's going to cost if we take the trees out and we have to grind out the stump, or take the trees out and put the kill stuff in, and what do we do with the whole?
Very good.
Okay?
I also have, what about lattice work? Can we, do they make a lattice work that lasts for a long period of time? I'm not talking about wood, but there's a metal lattice work.
You mean like creating a roof?
Well, lattice work is like the awnings, but they have the space in between.
Pergola.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
Pergola.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pretty big span. It's a big area, so it would create posts in the center, so you would end up having, you'd break up your space, which I don't think anybody will approve that, so pergola is only gonna span, you see it only on your back patios and your residential homes, 10 to 15 feet out, and there's a reason, because it doesn't have enough strength to span any further than that. So
Okay, all right, good.
But the trees don't shade the whole thing either. So,
no.
I think when that space was originally done, and Kenny Jordal recommended the stuff, the idea of how that space was going to be used was more, you sit around conversationally in these nice chairs or something. But how the boomers use it is we're out there dancing all over that place. And it's a little bit of a trip hazard going around that fountain, and then the chairs, the way were set up with just 3 people it just didn't hold a lot of people. So how we're using it now is maybe different than the original vision was. So I apologize for the fountain thing, but I'm
Yeah.
always walking around it.
Now that the fountain is there, have you ever been to other events, non-boomer events during the day? That fountain is awesome. Everybody loves it.
Oh, well then,
So,
that's good feedback,
yeah,
because I didn't
they've
hear
grown,
that.
they've grown to love it. I was wondering why you didn't like it, now I know.
Well, unless you guys just put a ton of work on that thing a year, half ago or 2, and money on it to get the
Yep.
thing so it didn't leak and.
Right? We just recoated it just here
Yeah,
a month ago.
yeah.
My only other issue with it is people sit in there and put their feet, and you have electricals, the lighting in there.
Just the boomers.
Well, it isn't just boomers when they have like concerts out there and stuff. So maybe there could be something done that could restrict people sitting in it and putting their feet in there.
I could put those little fish in there,
Yeah,
but we chlorinated so the fish wouldn't last.
there might be some problem with that.
All right, I'm going to let this next one, Russ answer it. Is all the furniture being replaced or just part of it?
So, we are not replacing any of the large pieces. Love seats and single seating only. So there's gonna be a big reduction in what's out there, which would be good for your dances. You won't have to stumble around the furniture. Any venues that we would have in there that would need more seating, we have chairs we can pull in to accommodate that. But for a general everyday purpose, you're gonna see a lot less. And there'll be, there won't be that group seating anymore, so.
Well, and because the Boomers clubhouse is so small, what's happened to Boomers is that courtyard at Kuntz has become one of our major events. I mean, when we do barbecues and stuff, we set our food out there. We're utilizing that space a lot more than we did, before.
That's a good thing.
Okay, the next line item is wood shop replace stained ceiling tiles. Russ has that on an MPS, and facilities maintenance will facilitate that. Stardust Theater, bathroom tile is original. While still functional, investigate the cost to update the tile. So, simply put on this one, if this is going to be your final recommendation, then I'll put costing to it as well. This is,
Well, Carl, roughly what would something like that cost? I mean, like, if you tell me it's gonna be $20,000, I'll say forget it, but,
yeah, I would imagine it's probably for 2 bathrooms, at least 150,000, because we wouldn't just do the tile, you'd do new countertops, new sinks, possibly, the partitions looked okay, but,
Right.
we were there for 30 minutes max in that building, so, again, taking it to the next level, that would be 2 bathrooms that would get a full detail of attention.
okay.
So I would say that's approximately your cost. 150,000 for 2 bathrooms.
Don't go in there.
And again, if you go in there and look at it, it looks immaculate. You may not like the colors because they're original, but it looks brand new.
It
And
does.
so it's hard to justify, especially when you come to cut time. That's gonna be the first thing to get cut off because it still looks great. So,
I didn't realize it was that it would be that expensive, too.
Yeah, I mean, it might be slightly overinflated, but, to ask the question off the cuff, that'll cover it, and I definitely would, put numbers to justify what was selected, so, but it's safe.
I'm okay taking that one off.
Roberta, I got a question here, it's not on the list. Carl, when we did our walkthrough over at Coots, you were showing off the new fire feature, and you lit it, looks beautiful. After I left, I started thinking about it. How many people are gonna sit on that counter right next to the flame? How many people are gonna fall into it, lose their balance and fall across it and get burned? You know, I had pictured the fire as being at the centerpiece of kind of like a little fountain area, where you had water on both sides, where people couldn't get to the flames. And now that I see the flame, where anybody could get to it and sit on it or fall on it, how dangerous is that?
Well, John, I'm going to say that it's built to county guidelines. It's going to have furniture in that area that you'll actually be sitting down, 3 sectional couch setups. You have fire features at the Ari Johnson pool deck area that I haven't heard one person fall in and get burned up yet. So
Okay.
I just think a little care and common sense takes place here, so.
Okay, well, I'm just bringing it up.
It is a county-approved project.
As long as I don't fall in it myself.
All right, maybe you should stay about 8 feet away or something.
I'll stay 8 feet away, but it is beautiful.
Thank you. All right, next on the list is the Ari Johnson Rec Center. It says, gym, check life of flooring. Some edges are bubbling up, and Russ has chosen to put this on MPS and address it from a facilities maintenance repair first. Okay. Next line item is remove carpet in women's locker room. Please forgive me, I didn't walk this area, but I do not recall any carpet, and there is carpet?
In the area where the mirrors and the sinks are, that's carpet.
Okay. I will look at this area and get back to you on that.
Well, the question would be, what do you want to see in there? And do you want to just replace like for like? It's time for new, or do you not want carpet in there at
No,
all?
we don't want carpet at all.
That helps. So you would rather see matching tile throughout the whole thing? Okay.
Everybody in agreement to that? Ari Johnson Tennis Center, paint the metal gate at the entrance. Russ has included that on his MPS. Add a dance floor in front of the great lawn stage. This is another dance floor area that I'm asking for you as a committee to decide what you're going to finally recommend, what size. I'm not worried about cost. I just want to make sure that that is what your final recommendation is as a group, what size.
But there is a cost, because and it's the same as it is over at Beardsley, is what does it cost to put a dance floor in versus what does it cost to keep repairing the grass if people are dancing on the grass? And so it's really difficult to make a decision to put down, it isn't, because we always make on the error and put down concrete and then go, well, why did we do that? Because now you got this big old ugly piece of concrete, and they'll be complaining in the summer that it's too hot to dance on, type stuff. But what is it? Is there an issue with the grass, the type of grass that's there on the Great Lawn, that people are trampling it down and stuff? 2 summers ago, when we actually had concerts and stuff there, people were out there dancing, and we had concerts night out, back to back or something night after night. It didn't look bad. It only looked bad right at first.
Well, I guess that's my point, is that as a committee, are you all in agreement that you want a concrete pad out there, 10 by 10, 10 by 20, at approximately $8 per square foot? So 10 by 10 pad at $8 square foot is $800.
Yeah.
So,
It's ugly.
is that what
Well, then
you
why
want?
not just dance in the grass?
Well,
I don't
okay,
da-
one
I
of
don't
the,
dance,
it's
so.
hard to dance on the grass, but the issue is,
Why?
most of the time when there is music there and people dance, they are over dancing to the right, in front of the handicap entrance, the ramp there, and also blocking the steps. So that becomes the issue, is there isn't enough room for everybody there, and it gets all crowded.
Are they in golf shoes
And then you cannot
dancing?
use the handicap. And that's how you get to the restrooms up there.
Well, I agree.
It's pretty hard to do a West Coast swing when you're on the grass.
That's what I wanted to hear. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure what you would, how come you can't dance in the grass? I never understood that.
Yeah.
All right,
It's hard to line dance.
there you go.
And is concrete the answer? Because I don't, you know, it's a dirt lawn and a temporary, you know, that takes staff breaking it down and picking it back up. We don't want that.
Right, we don't want a temporary one.
But I heard you mention before that you didn't desire the idea of concrete. So is it
Well-
concrete? Okay.
That was Barbara. Yeah, but like, so, no, we have those portable dance, but I thought we only rented those.
So I think this goes to Carl's point. You're not all on the same page, and you need to be. You need to figure how many are for it. If there's only one of you that wants it, does it even need to be on the list? So maybe it's good to go through all, and that's why I bullet pointed all of your items that were to be discussed. You guys need to decide as a group what you want to stand behind and what you don't, because Carl's got a lot of legwork putting dollars to all this stuff, because he doesn't have a book, he can just look it up and it tells you how much. So there's a lot of things that need to happen to put dollar numbers to these items.
Well, but the other issue is that you build it and like the one that's at Beardsley, and it's not big enough, so you make it bigger, and then that's not big enough, and then it gets bigger, and then it gets bigger, and then it gets bigger. If you've ever been to Hollywood Bowl or any of those type of venues, they have grass, because they know that at some concerts, it's gonna be packed. Some of the ones at Beardsley were packed, and the later the concert went and the more people drank, the more crowded it got down there. But if the band was really bad, nobody would dance, and so everybody fit on the dance floor. So I don't know. I think we should leave it alone. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Roberta. I understand, Sherry, that there's a certain type of dance that doesn't do well on grass. Is that more of a general comment that dancing doesn't work on grass? Because honestly, I'd rather keep the grass there and not go through all this if it's really more of a specific type of dancing problem rather than a general dancing problem, please.
Like I said, my issue is that when people are dancing over there, they are blocking the ramp for the handicap to get up to the restrooms up there. You know, there are the restrooms down across from the Zymergy Club, but to get all the way over there is sometimes, depending on where you're sitting at the Great Lawn, to take the ramp and go up to the restrooms up there on this main level of that area.
Folks, let me
I
ask,
guess I misunderstood, Roberta. I thought that where they were in fact dancing and causing the blockage area that you're concerned about was the concrete area.
It is a concrete, it's in
And my
front of
suggestion
the
is they-
steps, and as you go into the ramp, that's where people are dancing. But when it gets crowded, it's almost impossible to be able to use the ramp to go up to get to the restrooms.
Well, I'm kind of with Marshall. Maybe we put up a sign, dance on the grass, rather than dance, and don't dance on the concrete. Does that help with the problem? I don't know. I'm not
No,
that
because
familiar.
people will still dance on the concrete, because
Okay.
it's easier.
I would put this, I was schooled a while back from both Russ and Carl on a thing in a club, in this column, and it's every time we address something now, I got these two boys' words in my head. Is it a need or a want? Is it a need or a want? And so when I went down this list, well, you know, at first it really pissed me off. And I know we're live, but it did. But it is really true, because when I started perusing this list, I started putting N or W, need or want, need or want. And I think that we make that mistake thinking that we have this money pit, and so you do $800 here, $1,000 there, whatever, and the next thing you know, as Russ said, the remodel of the bathroom, just because we don't like the color, becomes the first one that goes. And so when you think about, I keep thinking about, remember that song, they put up a parking lot? Yeah, you know, when we're talking about this grass, that's what I'm thinking about. I mean, I look out at that big old parking lot out there and it just makes me crazy. You know, it's got this giant asphalt jungle that sits empty all summer long, and then it's there like that, I guess, because the seasonal residents come back. And so now we want to expand the grass at Beardsley to accommodate a larger dance floor. Have you ever been, half those people don't know how to dance. I mean, you know, and so is this a need or a want? I put this in the column of a want versus a need. We don't need to expand the dance floor. We want to expand the dance floor.
I know, but nothing irks me more than I cannot get up to the ramp to get up to the restroom.
But that's an events thing.
Correct.
Yeah, that's
So-
an
That's an
event
events
thing.
thing.
But if
You know-
there's a way, you shouldn't be blocking handicap entrances.
But that's an events thing. That's not a property thing. That's an events issue. I'm not running for the board, I promise. But that is an events issue, and the events coordinator needs to educate those people to say, please do not block this area. There's a way to cordon it off. You know, a little chain or a little thing is a heck of a lot cheaper than saying, don't dance there because you're blocking the thing. And I.
When you're at the Great Lawn, you have the restrooms where it only has 2 stalls over across from where the Zymergy Club is.
Oh, you mean where the putt-putt golf is?
Right, okay. So if you want to go to a restroom and you're sitting in that area, your natural tendency is just go up the ramp and use the restrooms that are over near the
Plaza.
railroad. So,
Roberta, if the events are that popular, why don't we just have Porta John set closer to the event?
whatever,
That's easy to do.
right. But if you're going to have a handicap access up there, then we should not be blocking it.
Well, we
Because your bands block it and and that's your events coordinator not keeping the bands from blocking it.
I understand what you're talking about, but the thing is that, so we can still block this access. I mean, we can just get there and block this so that they can't dance there. So let me ask you a question. So what do you need? 10? Now, to guarantee that those will stay open, you need a 10 by 10, 20 by 20, 50 by 50, 100 by 100. How big do you need to guarantee? You say you want it guaranteed to be open. So how big of a
No, I
pad?
said I want the ramp to be accessible.
I understand that, but we can get there and have that blocked off so that people can say, hey, you can't dance here. But the thing is just because we put concrete out there, is that going to guarantee that that ramp is going to stay open? And so you're not. I understand what your concern is, but the concern is not just putting the whole grass area into concrete is not going to guarantee that that's going to stay open.
That wasn't the plan.
Okay, folks, let's, let staff discuss the event side of this and how we can control traffic, okay? We'll get back to you on that, all right? But if you have a true concern for a dance area, you need to determine, is that going to be in the grass or not? Okay, so that. Yes, I am. Correct. All right, moving on, social hall, replace the lighting with LEDs and make them dimmable. So I did research on this already. CFO Pete Finelli and I will be placing Ari Johnson as a whole for energy conservation lighting program in 2 years. So it will not be in this next budget due to, competing dollars and getting Kuntz finished first. But in 22-23, we will attempt to place it in the budget then. And I just assure you that I will look at this room from a dimmable LED package.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Outside restrooms near Model Railroad Club and in the Village Store Plaza. Replace countertops and replace 2 cracked toilets in the Women's Club. Russ has got the toilets side of it as an MPS. I will place a low-level remodel of those countertops for next year's budget, in the budget. Repaint speed bumps at Ari's Johnson parking lot. Russ has put that in as an MPS, those will get repainted. Replace rusted planter in front of the pool entrances. They're not rust.
Well, I sent Russ
Okay.
pictures. They're deteriorating at the bottom of several of them. Gets too much water going through them, I guess.
So I forwarded that email over to Todd this morning, and he responded back, "I'll take care of it." And when Tom says he'll take care of it, it's done. Don't know what that means, but he'll take care of it.
It would be a shame you'd have to spend money to replace them, but maybe there could be something put at the bottom so they don't look so unattractive.
It's hard to tell water where to drain. It
I
finds its
know.
own way.
Right. All right, so I think what we'll do is we'll go through the list, and I'll send it out to everybody, and we'll decide on what items we want to make a recommendation for the next capital budget.
Roberta, if I may, did we skip an item, the bathrooms at the library?
No, that,
Oh, I'm sorry, I did. I
oh,
didn't,
which one?
The bathrooms at the library, it's right
Oh,
under the
okay,
one
that's
by the...
right, yes.
thank you, Jerry. The Ari Johnson Library bathrooms need to have grout restored. Yes, so that is also going to be placed on an MPS, and we'll have our grout restoring vendor come and seal and clean.
So I'll go through the lists and what we have that is an MPS or already planned for in future budgets, like the lighting here, and have everybody review it, and then we'll make our recommendations from there.
It should be well labeled. Everything that was MPS should say that at the end. Everything with bullet points is things you need to look over and decide on.
Right. Okay, thank you. Do we have any comments from the committee members?
Okay, I got additional item on here. Okay, over at Beardsley, went over and took a look at the deck outside the swimming pool. And we got the shuffleboard area that's sitting there, and I think you did a good job there. You get 2 of them. And I realize the shuffleboard's not a club anymore, and it's kind of a trial to find out whether that's gonna work or not. And that's no problem. But the basketball area, this has been a problem for years. We took a survey back in 2018. There were 7 comments on that survey out of a couple hundred comments concerned with the basketball court being unusable. Either the balls go across and, out of the area, it's hard to get to. You don't really have a flat surface, things like that. And at the time, because we were dealing with so many projects for clubs, they kind of got shoved off to the side. And personally, I'd like to see this kind of put on the master plan for the next 5 to 10 years as to how can we replace that. And my suggestion was on this area, and has been for a while, that we build a half court next to the parking lot over at the Stardust Golf Facility. Have a regular basketball height at one end and a variable at the other end for people playing with their kids, grandkids, and so forth, and maybe putting a picnic table there or something like that, so families could go over there, sit down, have a drink with their family, or drink with neighbors, and play a little basketball. Also realize that if you go around to other facilities and to the parks, you don't have a lot of activity going on in basketball courts. So it's kind of one of these things. Are we satisfying a half a dozen people within the association that would like to see it? Or do we just tell them to go over to Surprise and use the public courts over there?
That's kind of why they ended up where they ended up. The request was very low. They're limited use, but they do get used. Matter of fact, we're having the lines restriped per request because they can barely see them anymore. Not to say that that's the perfect place for them, but for now, it works. If it's something you want to add to your list, I would do that. Or we wait, see the master plan, and put a little sidebar that we need to keep an eye open for a good home for basketball.
I think my personal preference would be to see whether it could be added to the master plan for some time in the future because of the monetary needs that we have over the next few years. And I figure the cost of these courts would probably be somewhere in the $50,000 to $100,000 range. And I'm probably overstating it because we're talking about concrete and reinforcement, so it may not even be that high.
Sounds like a good plan.
But I think the thing is, like, I said, I'd like to see it on the master plan, that at least we're considering replacement at some time and not take it, and because of money right now, not put it in next year's budget.
Okay.
There had been discussion back in 2017 when we did the properties tours about using Stardust because it had so much extra room there for possibly something other recreational than just golf.
But you were talking about as part of the pickleball, the pickleball tennis subcommittee.
Well,
Stardust was-
Stardust was a lot of things.
Was a lot of things, and
It-
that was a place that had some room. And in going over there and looking at it, you could put something there, and it wouldn't really interfere with anything that's now in existence and now being used. Just take some grass out and put it right next to the parking lot. It's easy to get to, and it'll be kind of a nice facility. The question whether you have something lit or not is something completely different.
So let me expand on Stardust a little bit. I created a visual for group discussion on Stardust, and it talked about space, but it never talked about anything non-golf related, okay? So I don't have a single document that says anything non-golf related at Stardust. So if, in the master planning of anything, that if Stardust is a desirable place for master planning and expansion, it had to do with improvements to the driving range. It had to do with expansion and improvements to the pro shop. It had to do with maybe solving a maintenance office for Todd Patty and his staff. It had to do with possibly relocating mini golf if we needed mini golf to be relocated, which we don't currently have that need. So anything that was discussed in a master plan for Stardust was golf related, not a basketball, not pickleball. I just want to make that clear. So no space utilization document that we have has anything but golf related. So again, if you're recommending something to be done there, then it needs to be recommended and discussed here on this committee.
Right.
How many basketball players would we have?
Well, I mean, to Russ's point, we have so little play, and the courts, they're bland, and yes, they needed restriping, and we're honoring that request because they're there and they need to be maintained. But the court surface is perfectly safe and fine for playing a game of basketball at the level that members are requesting to play basketball, and that is very few. So that's why it exists where it exists. I mean, I would say it recommends a community question. How many people want to play pickleball in a master study, questionnaire, so.
Right. And I think the thing was with the Stardust, as part of the committee for pickleball tennis, that was the general manager at the time had recommended different sites to look at. They weren't in any plan. It was prior to you coming on board. And we were just taking a look at the space to determine whether it was suitable for pickleball at that time. And the decision was that the space was too small and would interfere with neighbors. So that was kind of taken off the board and was never even considered. But in going over there and taking a look at the space, yes, it could be used for something else, whether it be a shuffleboard area if needed in the future, or a basketball area in the future, or something else. It doesn't mean we have to do anything about it. It's just a matter, if we're going to, this would be a good spot for it, if a decision was made to do so. Just that I don't like the courts over at Beardsley. I don't like the look at it. I don't like the idea that people have to walk right by the pool to go play basketball. To me, that's just a bad setup. But as you said, it's put there because it was convenient. It was a place to put it. Okay, we've tried it. Now the question is, do we want to go beyond that? And the Stardust is a place to put it. And theoretically, Coots, putting it over Coots is because it's a place to put it also. Now personally, I don't play basketball. My son does, but I'm not a basketball player.
Yeah, I think it's a little early to beat that one. Once we get back into this master planning,
Right.
Stardust is definitely going to be a main focus for many ideas. Jay Hicks is actually the one you're referring to that came up with all these possibilities. Carl was here, was very much involved in that presentation, and since then, it's been a half a dozen or more other ideas for that space. You can keep going all day long, which is why Bill's pushing for this master plan, and then COVID kind of put that in a all but a halt. So when that picks up, that will all be addressed at that time.
Right, and I think that's the thing, is I would like to see it addressed in the master plan. What are we gonna do, if anything?
Another thing we could do is move that fence, Russ. Make the basketball brackets outside of the fence so that people wouldn't have to walk through nobody's going to bother the basketball goals, are they? If they're not fenced in?
Oh, you're talking about making the patio smaller?
Yeah, I'm talking about fencing off a place for the basketball and having it open so people could just walk.
But now the ball's going to go in the patio, and they're still going to have to go in there to go get it. No matter which side of the fence it's on, the ball eventually is going to go over the fence. Remember too, I have to maintain a no entry perimeter for Maricopa County because there's a pool on the other side of that thing. So that makes it even messier.
And doesn't that border the meditation garden?
Yes, it does on the other side of the sidewalk, you're right. Yeah. You start running out of room really quick.
Yeah. Any other comments, Sean? No. Okay. Jerry? Okay. Do we have anything? Yes, Mr. Young?
I just wanted to recommend, I have been going to Ari Johnson where they dance on the grass since they opened. I have had 465 complaints about not having a dance floor up in front. It's ridiculous to dance on grass at people our age. Does not work. They need to come up with some type of a structure, whether it be 10 feet wide by the width of or the length of the stage or whatever. I've been complaining about this since I've been here. I've talked to Russ about it a couple times. I said, take your cement mixer down here and do it. But it needs to get on the properties before it gets done. Trust me, it's needed. And you were right, Roberta, it does cause a problem because people want to dance on cement. The only cement there is where the driveway is, the walkway. It needs to be done. Whether it needs to be done this year, I don't know. That's up to the brains.
I just would like to know your opinion, when an event is happening on the stage, a performer, the audience that has no particular interest in dancing and they came to see a show in a chair, do they really want you dancing in front of them? Would they prefer you dancing on the side of them or behind them? Think about that, please.
They do at Beardsley right now. That is the same problem you have, and nobody really complains.
All right, thank you. Jerry, anybody else have any comments? Marshall?
Russ, Carl, where are we on the Grandview irrigation? Is that looked at for next year?
I can certainly address that.
I thought I'd,
Yes, sir, it is on schedule to be looked at. So financially, we have a planning meeting next week on the 11th, I believe, internally with our golf team, looking that scenario over. But in talking with Todd most recently, we're trying to figure out a timeline as far as the installation of that thing, because we have to let people know. We have contractors out there, be it the restaurant and the golf lab, and we have to make sure that they're taken care of as well of our staff. So when it comes down to the amount of time needed for the architect to design the work that needs to be done, that has to take place. Todd is in communication with the Arizona Department of Water Resources to try to come up with a number that we need to deturf because of the new rules that are coming into effect in 2025 when it comes to how much water you can actually throw on a golf course in the state of Arizona. So there's going to be some turf removal. Don't know how many acres at this point in time, but we're kind of keeping an eye on that as we move forward. So in our conversation I had earlier today with Pete, actually, we're looking at potentially splitting the project up into 2 fiscal years, where we have maybe this year coming up, we deal with the architectural and planning side. And then as the year rolls along, the following year, we look at the actual construction, just to kind of keep our costs in check and a timeline. But that's, a little premature, but I would, next month, if you ask that question, I think we'd have a little bit more solid guideline for you, but that's what next Wednesday is all about.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any comments come in, Katie? No. No, okay. So if we have no further business, I'll adjourn the meeting.